Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unleash Her. In case you don't know me, I'm Roberta, and I am so grateful that you're here. I have a very special guest with me today, Miss Carol Banens. Hi, Carol.
Hi, Roberta. Nice to see you again.
Great to see you too. How are you?
I am very well. I'm just back from the UK where my daughter got married, so I'm in a very good space.
Love it. Oh my goodness. I am just, I love hearing you speak. I could listen to you talk all day long. You said you had a little bit of a laryngitis or a little
Yeah,
bit of a scratchy throat
yeah.
from the big wedding, but hopefully you'll be okay today.
I hope
And
so. Yeah, I will.
I would just love it if you could tell people a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I will. Well, I'm English and I emigrated to Canada 34 years ago now. And my background was physical therapy. I was a physiotherapist for 38 years. Now, I separated, divorced from my first husband, and I married my second husband. And Brian was this amazing jazz pianist.
Mm.
And in 2012, he got lung cancer. And so in 2018, actually, it's 6 years tomorrow that he died. And that was a really tough journey for him, obviously, and for me, because you're seeing somebody you love waste away, get sicker and sicker, but also dealing with all the other things like a full-time job as a physio, looking after chronic pain patients, sick mother in the UK, flying to and from, friend with Alzheimer's. And so life got very, very hectic, very, very busy, and of course, very, very sad.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. Thank you. And one of the things about grief, and it's so interesting at this point in my grief. I said to a friend the other day, I'm comfortable in my grief, and she's like, oh wow, because it's 6 years now. I'm through that really acute, awful stage. But what I would say is grief changes you. And one of the things I know you're talking about confidence here on this show is it knocks your confidence. I didn't expect that for 1 minute. I'm a pretty confident person. I would go into a treatment room with a patient and we would talk and I would say, you need to do this. And I'd be very comfortable in knowing what they should do. I would be comfortable with decisions that I should make when I was at home. And I found after grief that I was dithering. I didn't really know. It's like, oh, well, should I do this or this? And that's one of the parts of grief that I didn't know about, that decision making becomes hard. Your thought processes are altered. Cognitively, you're not the same. And it's challenging when you used to have this lovely confidence of knowing to all of a sudden being unsure of yourself.
Yeah. How did you, how did you get through that? I know there's a grieving process, but
Mhm.
were there certain things that you did?
Well, I think, it partly was a time thing, and I didn't really realize about this. And so I just got on with living. And I think part of it was a choice of I have to keep putting one step in front of the other, no matter how hard it is. And then I did decide to hire coaches. And that's how we met, of course, in Kathleen Cameron's Diamond Academy. But before that, I had a business coach. And she said, you have to go on Facebook and do a Facebook Live. I thought I would be sick. I'd never gone and done a Facebook Live. I had a Facebook account, but I didn't do anything with it. And so I went on and did it. And she said, that's great. Now do one every day for 8 days. And it was really, really scary to put myself out there, but I'm a bit of a rule follower most of the time. And so she told me to do it. So I did it, and I really didn't feel good doing it. And then I did one every week for about 2.5 years when I was doing pain coaching, actually. And I think that really helped my confidence. What I will say, which was fascinating to me, is I've spent 38 years doing pain and looking after people, but for a 5 or 10 minute pain Facebook Live, I would spend the whole week preparing for it. I would feel sick the moment I had done it, thinking about the next week's one. But it really it pushed me out of my comfort zone, and it made me do something I didn't really want to do. And I think it did give me more confidence. And we're now sort of 3 or 4, well, probably 4 years down the road. And I feel very comfortable in front of the camera talking. It's okay. So I think that was one of the steps that really helped me with my confidence is doing something I didn't really want to do, isn't it? Facing the fear and doing it anyway. Um, so I did that. And then I had a different coach. And then I came into Diamond Academy. And I think that was really quite transformational
Mm.
because we're thinking about our thoughts and our beliefs and how can that change the course of our lives? And you and I both know it changes it completely. I never thought I was going to write a book. It wasn't anywhere in my consciousness until I started writing down what I was grateful for. And one of the things we practiced was writing down future gratitudes. One of them, when I look back, was I'm going to be an Amazon #1 bestseller. Where did that come from? I don't know. Guess what? It was an Amazon #1 bestseller when I did my grief poetry book. And so I think just really learning how to work with our thoughts and our beliefs really was helpful with confidence, allowing you to look at your emotional scale. Where are you on that scale? How can you have a better feeling thought? How can you help yourself feel better?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And that's amazing. Congratulations on
Thank you.
#1 bestseller too. And for your book, for having the confidence to get yourself to do something, to get uncomfortable.
Yes. And do you know the thing about the book that I find interesting because it's grief poetry. First of all, poetry was not something I'd done. I didn't like it at school because I think it all had to rhyme. So none of my poetry rhymes. But it was really an expression of the grief that I had pushed down. And I think this was what was so healing for me, actually. I wrote it last year, so that's 5 years after Brian died, not right at the beginning. And I had pushed away these feelings, trying to cope, trying to get that confidence, and yet feeling very flat a lot of the time because I hadn't dealt with the feelings. And so as soon as I wrote them, as soon as I wrote the book, wow, what a change. And yes, putting it out there, all the research that you do, you've written a book,
Mhm.
all the effort that you have to put into it to put out there, and you're really bearing your soul. You're being vulnerable, you're telling your story. And I think that builds your confidence.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Oh my goodness. So you never ever thought about writing a book before?
No, I hadn't. I hadn't. And I was writing posts on social media, and somebody said, "Well, that's very poetic." I thought, "Ooh, interesting." And I looked back at my posts, and they were kind of short and not these long, long, long ones. And I thought, yeah, they are a little bit. How about I start just writing how I'm feeling? And it really was a bit like a divine download. I couldn't write them again. It was, this has to come out. And sometimes I'd hear a word and I would think, wow, that really speaks to me. And boom, I would start writing.
Yeah. That definitely has to be the most healing thing. As we know too, the journaling and just
Yes.
getting it out there, just
Yes.
putting it on paper, and sometimes putting it on paper, and if it's something you don't ever want to think about again, burning that paper.
Blessing and releasing it. It's interesting you should say that because somebody told me in the early days of grief, listen, when you wake up in the morning, which is the worst time for grievers, you don't want to get out of bed, you just want to pull the covers over. Just grab a journal and start writing how you're feeling. Doesn't matter what it says, but just write what you're feeling and don't read it. And I didn't read it for several years. I found the diary, not long ago, and I read it, and it's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking. How am I ever going to go on without him? What's it going to be like? I don't want to get up. I don't, all of the stuff that you can imagine when you've lost somebody you love. And part of the shaking of the confidence, I think, when in grief, especially if it's your partner, is you don't know who you are without them. You've spent this time with someone and you're somebody's wife or husband or partner, whatever it is, and everything you do is a sort of, we do this. It was Carol and Brian, or we did that. And all of a sudden it's you're on your own.
Mhm.
And we know that when somebody is very close to you, they're encoded in your brain, and it feels like you've had an amputation when they go. And so you don't know who you are. You've lost your self identity. You've lost your role. And I think a lot of working in grief is finding that confidence to move forwards. Some people never do. Some people stay stuck in that yearning and that longing for what was, and don't appreciate or aren't in gratitude for the life that they have left. That's not a judgment. That's 10% of people go through complicated grief, and it's very difficult. And so, yeah, I think we have these little steps we can take to start finding out who we are, trying to build our self-confidence in ourselves. That can be very hard, I think, particularly for women who maybe have relied on husbands. They're just lost.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in a couple of weeks, my parents are celebrating their 65th wedding anniversary.
Wow. Wow. That's impressive. And that's a long time. So when you've spent that long together, and a few years before, because they probably knew each other before,
Mm.
you can imagine that if one of them is not there, that the other one is completely, apart from being completely bereft and in grief, just not knowing quite how to function without them. Having that person in the room, even if you say nothing,
Mhm.
they're there. They know what you're thinking. They finish your sentences. One look can tell them what you're thinking. All of those beautiful interactions that we have when we know people, when they're taken away, you're lost.
Yeah, absolutely. But your book is just such an inspiration to
Oh,
others.
thank
And
you.
it's just such a beautiful thing that you wrote to share with others. And
Thank you very
so
much.
you're welcome. Um, I know last time you actually read a little passage for me.
Oh, I could do that
Have
again.
I
So for
I
people listening, the book is called Kintsugi Your Heart, The Art of Living with Grief. And if you don't know what kintsugi means, it's the Japanese art of putting together a broken pot with liquid gold so it looks really pretty afterwards. And I think that's really lovely, when you're thinking about it. So the book's divided really into three sections. Shattered, when you think about your heart being completely shattered, and then in pieces is the next section, and then making broken beautiful, because we want to bring it back together. So where would you like a poem from? Do you want one from the very heartfelt beginning? Would you like one where it's a bit more positive at the end?
Yes, that one.
Yes, okay.
Positive.
Positive at
We'll
the
we'll
end.
s we'll
Okay.
stick with that one. How's that? Yes.
Well, yeah, okay. All right. All right. I'm actually gonna read here we go. I'll read the one that is actually Kintsugi Your Heart.
Ooh,
The
okay.
poem's called Kintsugi Your Heart with Love. Your heart shattered into a million pieces, crushed by the weight of grief. You can't even imagine patching it up again, becoming whole again. And yet, it can be done, piece by little piece, gently, tenderly, lovingly. The Japanese art of kintsugi is putting broken pieces of pottery back together with glistening liquid gold, a beautiful way to restore something damaged. Could you imagine using the same principle to mend your broken heart, gently joining each piece, not with gold, but love? And as you do the grief work of learning to come back to love despite the pain, finding acceptance in where you are now, you can discover that your heart can be whole in its put together state. Because despite the obvious fault lines, there's still beauty in its imperfection. Now it's whole, but different.
Wow, that's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how did the title come to you?
Well, I wrote a post, I think it was around Valentine's Day, and Kintsugi Your Heart came to me, and I think I wrote a post. And then when I wrote all these poems, I thought, oh, that's what it is for me. It's about bringing the heart back together, and we bring it back with the memories of the people we loved. They're like the scar tissue that's holding it together with love, with self-compassion, with maybe newfound confidence. So I want people to know that you can have your heart put together. It's not the same, it's different, but it doesn't mean you can't have a life full of confidence, full of joy, full of meaning. But you have to be open to that. And I think that's one of the big things I learned in grief, that there is a choice. There are many choices, right? Right from the moment somebody dies, whether it's the funeral or the songs or the order of service, cremation, burial, all of those, of course. But we have a choice about our life. And that's hard when you're not feeling confident, when you don't know which direction to go. And that's why it's so important you don't do grief alone, because you want somebody to hold you up, to hold that space for you, to nurture you, to guide you back to yourself and grow that confidence. That's grief is so hard, and yet there is life after loss. But you do have to be open to going in that direction. The grief is with you. It changes, it softens. Tomorrow is the anniversary of my husband's death. Now, the first year, I sat alone at home and listened to his music, and it was painful, and it was as it should be. I sat with that pain. And then each year after that, I've spent it with a friend, and we toast him. Tomorrow, I'm going with my best friend to our Brian and my favorite restaurant, and I'll eat what we always used to eat. And that's like honoring him and remembering him. Am I sad? Yes. But I'm also in gratitude for the beautiful life that we had, for his incredible music, for the person he was. I can look back with joy and gratitude now more than sorrow. That takes a little bit of time and some work to do.
Wow. You just have such a beautiful heart, and the way that you speak with such um compassion.
Ah, thank you. Well, I think grief makes you more compassionate for sure, because we don't know what it's like. We think we know, we don't know. Just like, with your daughter and a traumatic brain injury, we hear about it, but we have no idea until we live it what that's like. And grief is much the same. You think, well, you're going to be sad for a little bit, then you'll be fine. Well, no, not necessarily. It takes longer, it's harder. And as you understand that as a griever, I think you're much more compassionate with people, a lot more forgiving, and you see what's important in life. And I think that's a big lesson. We don't know when our time is. We really don't. Now, I knew that Brian was sick, and I knew that it would happen. But, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And I think the awareness of our own mortality comes in about, what, some things just don't matter. Let's focus on the things that matter. Let's be grateful on the relationships, on our people around us, our friends, our children, our family. These are the things that matter.
Yeah.
And I think that really stands out for me now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It's it's really enjoying every single moment.
Yeah, it is. It is. And another thing about, I'm sorry, I'm talking about grief because I'm a grief coach and a grief educator,
Right.
but that's also my story. It's
Yeah.
profoundly changed me. I look the same, I sound the same, but I'm not really the same. I'm not, because I've lost my person. And when you lose your person, you're different. And I've had many griefs, and grief is any significant loss. Now, it can be pet grief, it can be parental, grandparents, partner, a job, a divorce, all of those. I've done all of those. And this one is the one that was the hardest, because we lived together, we were together all the time. And It does. It just changes you. It changes you. You're different. And I think hopefully you can then look at life and go, wow, I still have a life. What can I do with my life? That's what led me into the grief coaching and the grief educating, because I don't want people to struggle like I struggled. I didn't know anything about grief. Thought if I read a book, I'd be fine. I wasn't.
Yeah, you know, I know a couple of women that have just recently lost their husbands, and they both have said at one point, they're like, I'm pissed off. I'm
Yeah.
mad at him for leaving me. You know, not that they did that on purpose, you know, but you
No,
go
but
through those
actually,
phases.
that's a valid emotion. People
Mhm.
are mad, you've left me.
Yeah.
And I'm here dealing with what you've left, what's left. And I'm here
Right.
without you, the one person I need to deal with this, and you're gone. So, and of course, we think of anger as a bad emotion. No, it's just an emotion, and it's totally valid. You can be angry. You can be angry that that drunk driver hit your child. You can be angry at these things, angry that you're alone. And we have to find ways to channel that anger that's not destructive to you or other people, to express it in a healthy way. And how do we move forwards from there? Because if you stay in anger, if you stay in resentment and bitterness, life's not going to be very pleasant.
Yeah, not at all. So what do you do? How do you work with people? Like, what's
Mhm.
their
With
process?
emotions, yeah. Well, I think you have to hear them first. I think you always meet somebody where they are. Why are they angry? Tell me about why you're angry. Validate what's going on for them, because we do tend to hush people up. We're like, oh, you shouldn't be angry. Allow them to be angry. Allow them to tell you why they're angry. Come up with solutions. Do you want to punch a pillow? Do you need to go to the bottom of the garden and shout? Look at what it is. Are there things they can be grateful for? And I know in grief, it's very hard to find things to be grateful for, but it's important. And I luckily had a gratitude practice before Brian died. So every night I always write down what I'm grateful for. And it's these little things. It stops you from being angry, being sad for a moment. Wow, I'm grateful for that beautiful flower in my garden, for the scent of the flower. I'm grateful for my coffee. I'm grateful for air conditioning on a day when it's 32 degrees outside. Doesn't matter. Find things to be grateful for. Look for the good. Don't always focus on the bad. And if somebody's in early grief, they're going to be listening, saying, she's talking a load of rubbish. I'm really sad. I know you are. I was too. I've been there. And I was still looking for little things, little tiny things to be grateful for. I sat at the end of my bed and thought, what's the point? I've done that, of course. What's the point of going on? How on earth am I going to go on without this man, this larger than life man and his music? I went to gigs every four times a week. That was taken from me. I couldn't stand listening to music because music was Brian. And so I do get it. And I get that we have a journey and an experience in grief. And we have to choose. It always comes back to me to choosing life, the life we have left, and in that way honoring the person that died, however that may be. And sometimes you need people to help you on that road of deciding to make little choices that are good for you, that will make life drip a bit of joy back into your life,
Yeah.
despite.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's so good. Like, it's so important that you are doing like so you found your purpose or a new purpose.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. And not everyone does. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? I did. Whoever thinks they're going to be a grief coach? I mean, you don't grow up and think I'll be a grief coach. I loved my career as a physiotherapist, but um, this I am passionate about. This speaks to my heart, because if I can help somebody else manage their grief, navigate their grief, and in the end, integrate it so that they can live life again, that's a really special thing. It's a privilege to walk that journey with people. So, yes, I would say I've had growth through grief, but it's not an expectation, and I don't think everybody will. but I feel lucky that I have had that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And writing. Who knew? Who knew?
You're, but you're a good writer.
What we Listen, if you'd spoken to my English teacher when I was 18, she wouldn't have said so. But I found I think I found what my heart needed to say, and I think that is the key. A burning desire to change things, right? Just like you are.
Mhm.
When we find the right thing, I think then we're quite good at it. I loved my job as a physio. I was a very good physio. I was passionate about it. Million books, reading it, always going on courses. I wanted my patients to feel better. Well, I feel the same way about grief. It's really, well, that was physical pain. This is emotional pain. Not that much different, really.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're right. The both of us we have found our purpose or our new purpose
Hmm.
um through um some bad things that happened to us, unexpected. And it
Yes.
depends what happens at that time, whether, because I went through a lot too, and I went through that mad angry stage and
Yep.
just wanted my old life back and all of that, but I didn't stay there. But I I don't know, what helped me was the guidance of a mentor.
Yeah, I agree.
Or
I think so. I think when you've got a traumatic experience like the one you went through, or grief, or any difficult thing, having somebody who's done it, somebody who knows about it, somebody who can guide you, I think that's key to success.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
finding your life again, and that life might look different, but it can still be fulfilling,
Yeah.
even without that other person, and you find the new ways of doing things. I just think what you're doing is so, so amazing, so inspiring for so
Oh,
many people.
thank you so much. That's really lovely. Thank you. I hope so. I hope so. That's what I want.
And it's interesting because this has been, like I told you, two of my friends recently that have
Yeah.
lost their spouse. And I think that your book is such a nice thing to, to give these people.
It is. I think so because can I read one more? Because there's something, with grief.
Yes.
With grief, people don't get it. They just don't get it. And there's one in here that is, I think will, okay, well, actually, I'll read this one because this will speak to confidence. Losing you, losing me. You were lost, gone. And me? It turns out I'd lost me too. Without you, without us, I was not me anymore. That me, she died right beside you. But who was I now? That was the question. What brought me joy? I didn't know. What did I love? I didn't know. What did I want? I didn't know. Oh, my love, I didn't just lose you, lose your music, lose your smile, lose your jokes. I lost me too. And that was unexpected. At the worst time of my life, suddenly, I didn't have a clue who I was anymore. Losing you, losing me, a grief doubled.
Wow. Wow. Very interesting. That is,
Kind of speaks to what we're talking about, doesn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Just didn't know. I didn't know. And so you can know, be open to it, get somebody to help you deal with this, to research what did you love? What might you love now? What do you want to do different? Like it's like writing the new story, isn't it? The new chapter, the next chapter, the different chapter. No, maybe not what you'd imagined, not what you'd wanted. Doesn't mean you can't still have a nice next chapter.
Yeah. How can so how can people find you?
They can go to my website, www.carolbanens.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel, and that has lots of little things about grief. So go there, just look up my name. And yeah, and you can contact me through the website, send me a message. You can buy my book on Amazon. So yeah, and actually, Roberta, I do a grief cafe, an online grief cafe, once a month, the first Thursday of every month. So I'm doing it, is it Wednesday today? No, Thursday this week. And it's 9:30 to 10:30 EST. And people can come for as long as little as they want. It's just a place to talk about your grief. It's a place to share your story, listen to others, just be with people who get it. And so please, if you go to my website, you'll be able to sign up for it there. Come and join me. Come and talk or message me from my website.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to share that with my clients
Okay,
as
I'll send
well.
you the link. Yeah,
Okay, perfect. Yes, and then we will have that included below with your bio and everything, so everybody
that's
can
wonderful.
find you that way too. Um, so are you writing another book or are
Oh,
you
I don't know. I don't know if it would be poetry. I don't know
yeah,
if a grief book is in there. There are so many, but you tell it in your own way. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. I think I need to go away somewhere quiet where there's nothing and just sit and see what comes. But we don't do that very often, do we?
I know. We try.
I know. I think that's when the inspiration will come.
I do absolutely. That's where it comes.
Yeah, yeah,
Quiet, peaceful moment.
for
Um,
sure.
yes. Do you try to do that every day? Have a peaceful.
I meditate every day. Yeah. And I just taught a mindfulness class, so that was always nice and quiet. But yes, no, I do take some quiet time every day.
Yeah.
But I like quiet days, not a
Mhm.
quiet hour or half an hour, several days.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd say this, but I think I might like a silent retreat. People laugh when I say that because they can't imagine me not talking. But that's where you go inside. That's where you hear things, your intuition, whatever.
Yeah. And that's where you can heal
I think so.
from the inside out.
Always.
Always.
Yeah, always.
Always. So, so beautiful. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. And I appreciate you. It
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It was lovely chatting to you again.
was so, so good. And so, yeah, congratulations on your daughter's wedding
I
and
know. Beautiful.
very, very exciting for that for you. And it's those times that you just embrace that, enjoy that, love
Yeah,
it, find something
sure.
to love and enjoy.
For
Any
sure. Good advice.
any anything else you would like to share? I think we covered it all.
I think we covered it all. Just that
Mhm.
if anybody here is going through grief, know that it can change. Yes, you carry it, but it doesn't stay as heavy as it did at the beginning. There is life after loss. And if you need to reach out, please do, even if it's just for a chat.
Mhm. Aw, thank you so much, Carol. And thank you everyone for joining us today. And so I know that you feel empowered and inspired through Carol's voice, and feel free to reach out to her, and if you would like some help learning how to live, an extraordinary life, reach out to me. I would love to chat with you through my VIP coaching. And I love to leave my podcast instead of saying goodbye, because my grandma, she did not like to say goodbye. And instead of goodbyes, she would always say, "See you later. So
See you
long."
later.